First impressions. Grand Admiral Nexith of the Galactic Concordat stood before the massive observation window of her flagship, her iridescent scales reflecting the distant starlight as she studied the holographic display before her. The human diplomatic vessel approaching their rendezvous point was almost comically small, barely a quarter the size of even the Concordat's smallest escort ships. Fascinating, she murmured, her inner eyelids flickering in amusement. They sent their Minister of Defense in that. Her chief strategic advisor, Commander Vrel, manipulated the holographic controls with his primary manipulators, zooming in on the approaching vessel. Indeed, Admiral. The humans call it the Endeavor. Their entire space force consists of similarly compact vessels. The human ships designed defied conventional wisdom. Where Concordat vessels were vast cities in space, bristling with visible weapon arrays and powered by massive antimatter reactors, the Endeavor was sleek, minimalist, with no obvious armaments. Its hull bore the simple marking TDF-117 along with Earth's flag, a stark contrast to the ornate military decorations that adorned Concordat vessels. How did they even achieve deep space travel in something so limited? Nexith wondered aloud. The question wasn't entirely rhetorical. Humanity had somehow gone from primitive chemical rockets to faster-than-light travel in barely 2 centuries, an achievement that had taken most species millennia. Our analysis suggests they're using some form of modified fusion drive, Vrel replied, his tentacles rippling with skepticism. Extremely inefficient by our standards. Their entire fleet couldn't match the firepower of this single ship. Nexith's sensitive infrared receptors detected something odd about the approaching vessel. Its heat signature seemed oddly contained for a fusion-powered craft. She filed the observation away for later consideration. Well, she said, straightening her ceremonial armor, let's go meet our primitive friends. The Concordat Council is eager to hear their petition for membership, though I suspect it will be a short discussion. The diplomatic reception hall was a testament to the Concordat's power, a vast chamber with walls of living crystal that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. The human delegation seemed almost lost in its immensity. 5 individuals in simple blue uniforms, led by their defense minister Helena Chen. Minister Chen was shorter than Nexith had expected, but carried herself with unmistakable authority. Her gray hair was pulled back in a severe style, and her dark eyes missed nothing as she took in the chamber and its occupants. Welcome aboard the Celestial Dawn, Nexith greeted them formally. I trust your journey was comfortable. She couldn't quite keep the condescension from her voice. Chen's smile was polite but carried an edge. Quite comfortable, thank you. Your hospitality is appreciated, though I noticed your escort ships maintained weapons lock on us throughout our approach. Standard procedure. Nexith's scales rippled in surprise. Their targeting systems were supposed to be undetectable. A simple precaution. These are dangerous times. The swarm incursions in the outer sectors have everyone on edge. Ah yes, the swarm, Chen nodded. We've been following reports of their attacks with great interest. Fascinating tactical patterns they employ. Commander Vrel's tentacles coiled tightly, a sign of agitation. You speak casually of a force that has overwhelmed some of our most advanced battle groups. Oh, not casually at all, Chen replied. We simply have a different perspective on tactical challenges. Speaking of which, she gestured to one of her aides, who brought forward a small holographic projector. We've prepared a presentation on Earth's potential contributions to Concordat security operations. The projection that sprang to life showed the complete human fleet deployment. Nexith couldn't help but trill in amusement. Their entire space force could fit in her flagship's main hangar bay. I fail to see, she began diplomatically, how such a modest force could meaningfully contribute to. A priority alert cut through her words. Commander Vrel's tentacles went rigid as he processed the incoming data. Admiral, he said, his voice tight with disbelief, we're receiving reports from the Proxima sector. The swarm launched a major offensive against the mining colonies there. Unfortunate, Nexith replied, but hardly unexpected. The Fourth Fleet is stationed there specifically to handle such. The Fourth Fleet has been destroyed, Vrel interrupted. But the colonies are safe. They were defended by... His voice trailed off as he double-checked the data. By 3 human vessels, Minister Chen finished quietly. Her smile hadn't changed, but somehow it seemed different now. Perhaps we should discuss those potential contributions to Concordat security in more detail. The silence that followed was broken only by the soft pulsing of the living crystal walls, as Nexith began to wonder if she had gravely misunderstood something about humanity's modest fleet. Hidden depths. The silence in the Concordat's Strategic Command Center was deafening. On the main display, 3 human vessels, mere dots against the vast backdrop of space, faced the remnants of the scattered swarm fleet. Behind them, the Proxima mining colonies pulsed with life, untouched despite the ferocious battle that had just taken place. Commander Vrel's tentacles worked furiously over the sensor readouts. This cannot be accurate. We're showing energy signatures that would tear apart ships of that size. And their hull composition, it's not registering properly on any of our scanners. Grand Admiral Nexith studied Minister Chen with new eyes. The human woman stood calmly, hands clasped behind her back, watching the tactical display with mild interest. Perhaps, Nexith said carefully, you could explain what we're seeing. Of course, Chen replied. Those are the TDF Hyperion, Artemis, and Orion, standard patrol vessels. They were conducting routine exercises in the sector when the swarm attacked. Standard patrol vessels, Vrel repeated incredulously. That just happened to defeat a force that annihilated our Fourth Fleet. Chen's expression remained neutral. The swarm's tactical patterns are predictable once you understand their underlying logic. Their ships rely heavily on overwhelming force and numerical superiority. We simply denied them both advantages. The tactical replay began to play. The human ships moved with impossible precision, their formations shifting in ways that seemed to defy physics. Where the Fourth Fleet had met the swarm head-on with overwhelming firepower, the human vessels danced through the enemy formation, turning the swarm's numbers against themselves. Their coordination is extraordinary, one of Nexith's analysts noted. The response times between maneuvers are faster than any known neural interface. We prefer integrated AI tactical systems, Chen explained. Our ship's artificial intelligence works in perfect harmony with human crews. The AIs handle split-second combat decisions, while our officers focus on strategic oversight. Vrel's color shifted to deep blue, a sign of distress. But our scan showed primitive fusion drives, minimal weapon systems. Chen's smile widened slightly. Did they show you exactly what we wanted them to show? You know, humanity learned something important during our own military history. Sometimes the most effective weapon is the one your enemy doesn't know exists. The implications began to sink in. Every assessment, every scan, every analysis of human technology had been based on what the humans had allowed them to see. Their seemingly primitive ships were nothing of the sort. The compact design, Nexith realized aloud. It's not a limitation. It's an advantage. Smaller targets, concentrated power systems, and far more efficient use of space. Chen nodded. Why build massive ships that make easy targets when you can achieve the same capabilities in a fraction of the size? Every cubic meter of our vessels serves multiple functions. Those primitive fusion drives you detected, they're actually quantum singularity cores, masked by metamaterial hulls that can alter their sensor signatures at will. A new alert flashed across the tactical display. More swarm ships were emerging from hyperspace, drawn by the battle. Without waiting for orders, the 3 human vessels moved to engage them. Watch closely, Chen suggested. I believe this demonstration will answer many of your questions about Earth's potential contributions to Concordat security. What followed defied everything Nexith thought she knew about space combat. The human ships seemed to phase through swarm energy webs, their hulls redirecting enemy fire in impossible ways. Their weapons, when finally revealed, cut through swarm shields like they didn't exist. Quantum entanglement targeting, Chen explained, as if discussing the weather. Paired with temporal displacement fields, the weapons strike their targets microseconds before their shields can respond. The technology is relatively new. We only perfected it about 15 years ago. Nexith felt her scales ripple with a mixture of awe and fear. The humans hadn't been developing a primitive space force. They'd been quietly revolutionizing warfare itself, hidden behind a facade of technological simplicity. "Why reveal this now?" she asked finally. Chen's expression grew serious. "Because the swarm is just the beginning. There are worse things stirring in the dark between stars. Admiral, humanity would rather face them as part of the Concordat than alone." Besides, her smile returned. Keeping up appearances was becoming rather tedious. As if to emphasize her point, one of the human vessels executed a maneuver that seemed to briefly bend space itself, emerging behind a swarm dreadnought before erasing it from existence with a weapon that left no trace of its passing. The awakening. News of the Proxima Sector battle spread through Concordat space like a shockwave. In the Great Council Chamber of the Celestial Dawn, representatives from 100 species gathered in emergency session, their voices rising in a cacophony of concern and speculation. Supreme Counselor Zixthar, their crystalline form pulsing with agitation, called the session to order. "We have all seen the reports. The question before us now is what to do about the humans." In the gallery reserved for diplomatic observers, Minister Chen sat quietly, flanked by her aides. The chamber's artificial gravity had been set to Earth standard, a small courtesy that now seemed more like an acknowledgement of power. "They deceived us." The hive mind representatives' pheromone signals filled the chamber with angry red mist. For decades they presented themselves as technological infants while developing weapons that violate fundamental laws of physics. "No," Commander Vrel interjected, his tentacles weaving complex patterns of disagreement. "They never deceived us. We deceived ourselves. They simply allowed our assumptions to persist." Grand Admiral Nexith stepped forward, her scales now a deep purple of profound realization. "The commander is correct. Review our historical data. At no point did the humans actually claim technological inferiority. We saw small ships and assumed primitive technology. We detected familiar energy signatures and assumed limited capabilities. The tactical display activated, showing a detailed analysis of human vessel movements during the Proxima battle. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. "Their ships don't just fight," Nexith continued. "They rewrite the rules of engagement. That modest fleet we dismissed. Each vessel is a technological marvel beyond our current understanding. Their hulls incorporate metamaterials that can alter their physical properties in real time. Their weapons systems are centuries ahead of our most advanced research." A new voice interrupted. Dr. Krell, the Concordat's chief scientist, emerged from their observation pod. "We've been analyzing the battle data. The humans aren't just using advanced technology. They're using principles of physics we haven't even theorized yet." Minister Chen finally stood, and despite her small stature, the action drew every eye in the chamber. "If I may address the council." Supreme Counselor Zixthar's crystalline form flickered with reluctant acknowledgement. "Speak, Minister Chen. Humanity's path to the stars was different from yours," she began, her voice carrying easily through the vast space. "While your species expanded gradually, testing each technological advancement over centuries, we were forced to innovate rapidly. Our world's resources were dwindling. Our climate was changing. We didn't have the luxury of time." She gestured, and a new hologram appeared. Earth, but not as the Concordat knew it. This was Earth of 2 centuries ago, its atmosphere choked with pollution, its oceans rising. Necessity drove us to quantum computing breakthroughs, which led to true AI, which in turn helped us master antimatter containment, quantum entanglement, and eventually the manipulation of space-time itself. We compressed a millennium of gradual advancement into 2 centuries of desperate innovation. The chamber erupted in murmurs as Chen continued, but we also learned from history. Every first contact scenario in our fiction, every real incident of technological disparity between civilizations on Earth, taught us one crucial lesson. Revealing too much, too quickly, often leads to conflict. So you hid your true capabilities, Nexith realized aloud, waiting to reveal them only when absolutely necessary. Chen nodded. We sought to join the Concordat, not from a position of weakness or strength, but as equals. We hope to gradually demonstrate our value, share our innovations in ways that wouldn't destabilize existing power structures. And now, Supreme Counselor Zixthar demanded. Now. Chen's expression hardened slightly. Now the swarm has forced our hand. But they're not the real threat, are they, Counselor? Your deep space sensors have detected the same anomalies ours have. Something is coming. Something that makes the swarm look like a minor inconvenience. The chamber grew deathly quiet. Few outside the highest levels of Concordat leadership knew about the strange readings from the galactic core, the impossible energy signatures, the distortions in space-time itself. Humanity, Chen concluded, would prefer to face what's coming as part of a united Concordat. But make no mistake, we will face it with or without you. The choice is yours. Tables turned. The next few days aboard the Celestial Dawn saw a complete reversal of the established order. Where once human representatives had been politely tolerated, they were now sought after, their insights eagerly requested by species that had previously dismissed them. In the ship's primary research bay, Dr. Krell watched in fascination as Lieutenant Sarah Patul, one of Minister Chen's technical advisors, demonstrated a small device that defied everything they thought they knew about physics. You see, Patul explained, her hands moving over the floating sphere of impossible light, we discovered that quantum fields don't actually collapse when observed. They simply shift to a different probability state. Once we understood that, developing quantum-stable technology was just a matter of... She paused, searching for words. Well, asking the universe nicely to maintain its quantum properties at macro scales. Krell's sensor pods whirred in confusion. Asking the universe nicely. It's a joke, Patul smiled. But the principle isn't far off. We learned that the universe responds better to subtle manipulation than brute force. Your ships try to punch through space. Ours dance with it. Across the ship, similar scenes played out. Human engineers revealed the true nature of their vessel's seemingly compact design. Shells within shells of folded space, allowing ships that appeared tiny from the outside to contain vast internal volumes. Their AI systems weren't simply advanced computers, but quantum consciousness matrices that existed partially outside normal spacetime, allowing for literally instantaneous decision-making. In the tactical center, Grand Admiral Nexith found herself in the unfamiliar position of being a student rather than a teacher. Commander Chen, Helena's brother and Earth's foremost tactical AI specialist, was explaining how their ships coordinated in battle. Each vessel's AI exists in a quantum-entangled state with its sisters, he explained, bringing up a holographic display of the Proxima battle. They don't need to communicate because they're essentially parts of the same consciousness, operating across multiple points in space simultaneously. But the human crews, Nexith prompted. How do they interface with such advanced systems? Chen's expression grew thoughtful. We found that the human mind, properly trained, is remarkably adept at handling quantum uncertainty. Our neural interfaces don't try to match the AI's processing speed. They create a symbiosis. The AI handles the impossible calculations, while human intuition guides overall strategy. Together, they achieve what neither could alone. Meanwhile, in her private quarters, Minister Chen was engaged in a more serious discussion with Supreme Counselor Zixthar. The crystalline being's form had taken on the deep blue of profound concern. The readings from the galactic core. Zixthar's translated voice carried a tremor. You've interpreted them. Yes, Chen replied, her usual diplomatic smile absent. What you're detecting is a rupture in space-time itself. Our calculations suggest it's artificial in origin. Artificial. Zixthar's form flickered in alarm. You mean someone, or something, is deliberately tearing open the fabric of space. The swarm isn't just running rampant. They're running from something. And whatever it is, it's using the disruption to. Well, we believe they're trying to enter our galaxy from somewhere else. Somewhere outside normal space. The implications hung heavy in the recycled air. Chen continued, "This is why we maintained our deception for so long. We needed to understand the true nature of the threat before revealing our capabilities. If we had shown our hand too early, the enemy would have adapted." Zixthar completed the thought. "Just as they're undoubtedly adapting to what they learned at Proxima." "Precisely. But now we have no choice. The rupture is growing exponentially. Conservative estimates give us perhaps 6 months before whatever's on the other side breaks through. We'll need every advantage, every innovation, every resource both humanity and the Concordat can muster." In the vast holographic display between them, the anomaly at the galactic core pulsed with ominous energy. Each fluctuation sent ripples through surrounding space, distortions that seemed to twist the very light of nearby stars. "Tell me, Minister," Zixthar asked quietly, "do you believe we can stop this intrusion?" Chen's expression hardened with determination. "Counselor, humanity didn't spend 2 centuries developing impossible technologies just to watch our galaxy fall to extra-dimensional invaders. We have plans, contingencies, things we haven't revealed even now. But we'll need the Concordat's help to implement them." New Dawn. 6 months after the Proxima revelation, the combined fleets of humanity and the Concordat gathered at the edge of the galactic core's exclusion zone. The scene would have been unthinkable half a year ago. The massive Concordat dreadnoughts now retrofitted with human quantum technology, their hulls shimmering with metamaterial upgrades that made them fraction of their original size while maintaining their internal volume. From the bridge of the Celestial Dawn, now serving as the Joint Command Center, Grand Admiral Nexith watched the final preparations with a mixture of awe and apprehension. The human vessels, no longer hiding their true nature, glowed with impossible energies that her sensors still struggled to comprehend. "Final integration checks complete," Commander Chen reported, his neural interface glowing softly at his temple. "All ships report ready. The quantum consciousness network is stable across all vessels." Minister Chen stood at the main tactical display, her expression grave. The rupture in space-time had grown to encompass several solar systems, its edges writhing with energies that defied conventional physics. Strange shapes could occasionally be glimpsed through the tier geometries that hurt the mind to observe. "Status of Project Lighthouse?" she asked. Dr. Carell's sensor pods whirred excitedly. "The quantum beacon network is operational. Each node is maintaining stable entanglement. When activated, they'll create a closed loop of defined space-time around the rupture. In theory," Supreme Counselor Zixthar added, their crystalline form pulsing with nervous energy. "Theory is all we have," Chen replied quietly. "No one's ever attempted to quarantine a portion of space-time before. But the math is solid, and the simulations." She was interrupted by a massive surge of energy from the rupture. The tactical display erupted with warnings as something began to emerge. The shapes they glimpsed before were nothing compared to what now pushed its way into normal space, vast structures of impossible matter, constantly shifting between states of existence. "By the void," Nexith breathed. "Those energy readings, each of those constructs outputs more power than an entire star cluster." "Now we know why the swarm was running," Commander Chen said grimly. "All ships, battle formations, remember your training. Don't try to process what you're seeing. Let the eye handle the impossible physics. Focus on the strategy." The invading entities began to move with purpose, their very presence warping the space around them. Where they passed, reality itself seemed to fray at the edges. The first wave of their attack wasn't energy weapons or projectiles. It was a fundamental rewriting of the laws of physics in their vicinity. But humanity had prepared for this. The human ships moved in perfect coordination with their Concordat counterparts, their quantum-linked AIs adjusting faster than thought to each new change in natural law. Where the entities rewrote physics, the combined fleet's metamaterial hulls adapted, maintaining their own bubble of stable spacetime. Project Lighthouse, Minister Chen commanded. Execute. Across the battlefield, the quantum beacons activated simultaneously. Streams of concentrated probability connected them, weaving a web of defined spacetime around the rupture and the entities emerging from it. It was like watching reality itself being sewn back together. The entities reacted violently, their impossible geometries twisting as they tried to break free of the forming boundary. But they had made one crucial miscalculation. They had assumed that the laws of physics were immutable, that by changing them, they could ensure their victory. They hadn't counted on facing species that had learned to dance with those laws, to bend without breaking them. The network is stable, Carell reported excitedly. We're registering a cascade effect. The defined spacetime is propagating along the quantum links, forcing local reality to conform to our universe's natural laws. The effect was spectacular. Caught in a bubble of enforced normal physics, the entities began to lose coherence. Their impossible structures, dependent on their ability to rewrite reality, started to collapse in on themselves. They're trying to retreat back through the rupture, Commander Chen reported. But the quantum network is collapsing the rupture itself, Minister Chen finished. When we said we wanted to quarantine a portion of spacetime, we meant their entire incursion point. The battle, if it could be called that, was over almost anticlimactically. The entities, unable to maintain their existence in properly functioning spacetime, were forced back through the rapidly shrinking rupture. As the last of them retreated, the quantum network sealed the tear behind them, with a flash of probability made manifest. In the silence that followed, Supreme Counselor Zixthar's form shimmered with realized understanding. You never intended to fight them directly. No, Chen agreed. You can't fight something that exists outside your universe's laws, at least not conventionally. But you can ensure those laws are properly enforced, like setting up a really good lock on reality's front door. Grand Admiral Nexith's scales shifted to the deep green of respectful admiration. All this time, we thought we were teaching humanity how to be part of galactic civilization. Instead, we were all learning from each other, Chen corrected gently. Humanity's innovations combined with Concordat resources and experience. We couldn't have built the quantum network without your help, just as you couldn't have adapted your ships without ours. As the combined fleet began the process of establishing permanent quantum stabilization points around the former rupture site, Chen looked out at the stars, unchanged, undimmed, continuing their eternal dance through space. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest victories weren't won through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through understanding the true nature of the challenge. And sometimes, the smallest fleet could make the biggest difference if it just knew how to dance with the universe itself. Is collapsing the rupture itself, Minister Chen finished. When we said we wanted to quarantine a portion of spacetime, we meant their entire incursion point. The battle, if it could be called that, was over almost anticlimactically. The entities, unable to maintain their existence in properly functioning spacetime, were forced back through the rapidly shrinking rupture. As the last of them retreated, the quantum network sealed the tear behind them with a flash of probability made manifest. In the silence that followed, Supreme Counselor Zixthar's form shimmered with realized understanding. You never intended to fight them directly. No, Chen agreed. You can't fight something that exists outside your universe's laws, at least not conventionally. But you can ensure those laws are properly enforced, like setting up a really good lock on reality's front door. Grand Admiral Nexith's scales shifted to the deep green of respectful admiration. All this time, we thought we were teaching humanity how to be part of galactic civilization. Instead, We were all learning from each other, Chen corrected gently. Humanity's innovations combined with Concordat resources and experience. We couldn't have built the quantum network without your help, just as you couldn't have adapted your ships without ours. As the combined fleet began the process of establishing permanent quantum stabilization points around the former rupture site, Chen looked out at the stars, unchanged, undimmed, continuing their eternal dance through space. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest victories weren't won through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through understanding the true nature of the challenge. And sometimes, the smallest fleet could make the biggest difference, if it just knew how to dance with the universe itself. Is collapsing the rupture itself? Minister Chen finished. When we said we wanted to quarantine a portion of space-time, we meant their entire incursion point. The battle, if it could be called that, was over almost anticlimactically. The entities, unable to maintain their existence in properly functioning space-time, were forced back through the rapidly shrinking rupture. As the last of them retreated, the quantum network sealed the tear behind them with a flash of probability made manifest. In the silence that followed, Supreme Counselor Zixthar's form shimmered with realized understanding. You never intended to fight them directly. No, Chen agreed. You can't fight something that exists outside your universe's laws, at least not conventionally. But you can ensure those laws are properly enforced, like setting up a really good lock on reality's front door. Grand Admiral Nexith's scales shifted to the deep green of respectful admiration. All this time, we thought we were teaching humanity how to be part of galactic civilization. Instead, we were all learning from each other, Chen corrected gently. Humanity's innovations combined with Concordat resources and experience. We couldn't have built the quantum network without your help, just as you couldn't have adapted your ships without ours. As the combined fleet began the process of establishing permanent quantum stabilization points around the former rupture site, Chen looked out at the stars, unchanged, undimmed, continuing their eternal dance through space. Sometimes, she reflected, the greatest victories weren't won through superior firepower or advanced technology, but through understanding the true nature of the challenge. And sometimes, the smallest fleet could make the biggest difference, if it just knew how to dance with the universe itself.